What's happening now across the Niagara frontier? News stories, old stories, stuff you know about and stuff you'd never believe. It's the Niagara Hub Soapbox with Craig Avery.
Good morning. Today we're going to be talking Reclaim Niagara. We've seen the signs, we've heard the buzz. These guys have been around doing a lot of research and looking into the issues that are affecting some of the growth in the city. And we want to, I think they're ready to step up the buzz a little bit here. We have Jason Caffarella and Sean Weber, who are going to discuss what some of the issues are in town that we think we can address to move things forward in the benefit of the people that live here, I guess, and the businesses that operate here. So who wants to start, and what is Reclaim Niagara, which is a question I've heard many times.
I mean, I think Reclaim Niagara is a group of local business people, community organizers that we're just really sick and tired of seeing all the resources and the benefits of the resources from Niagara Falls be diverted to the state and state authorities with no oversight and no benefit for our residents. So our group really was moving to unify our voice and have our message sent to Albany and the politicians, local politicians and state politicians, and reevaluate how business is done in Niagara Falls. I mean, so many of our resources are diverted and we don't see any benefits for them or real benefits. So our goal is to become true partners in the resources in our backyard with the state and their authorities.
So that's the generic answer. What are some of the specifics? What are we talking about? Resources, for instance.
Well, I think one of the major issues is the power project. Now, originally the power project was a privately owned business in Niagara Falls, and they paid taxes. It was a private taxpayer, it was a private company, and at one point it was estimated that they paid upwards of 40% of the Niagara Falls tax levy in real estate taxes. The state took that over after the Showcroft plant fell into the gorge, and the state took that over, and now they have a monopoly. There's no other private entity or corporation that can step in and generate power in Niagara Falls, but the state has this ability to do so. They don't pay taxes. Their contribution to the city is about a few $100,000 a year, which is probably less than 1%. Whereas before, when it was a private entity, that entity was paying upwards of 40%. So us, the taxpayers, have to basically subsidize the state's power project in Niagara Falls while they take all of their power and the money generated by the power and spend it elsewhere throughout the state. One thing that we found through the state controller's audit from 2013 is that the New York State Power Authority had 2 private jets, 3 pilots on staff, 3 full-time travel agents. They had this whole basically department to schedule trips for executives from the Power Authority and maintaining 2 private jets. That's a problem to me, and I know it's a problem to a lot of our fellow residents, because we drive down our streets and we see that, we're suffering, very a lot of financial problems in the city. And if you look at it, every single year we have a catastrophic city budget. Basically almost every year we have had problems balancing the budget because the revenue just isn't there. But we have one huge resource, which is the Power Authority, that the state sweeps all the money away and leaves a couple $100,000, a few $100,000 in the city per year.
And no one has questioned this before, or what has happened in the 40, 50
over the years, there's been people that have talked quite a bit about this, but it always just seems to be put off, and it always seems as a state, they'll come and they'll give us a little dribble here and a little dribble there, and it's a situation where we have to go to the state hat in hand all the time begging for money. What we're trying to really look at is, instead of that money going to Albany and then us going to Albany to ask for the money back, we think a lot of that money that's generated here should stay here in the first place. Mm-hmm. When you talk about the resources, along with the Power Authority, when you look at the state parks, the Parkway area, the state owns all the good stuff. They own all the good property, and they, a lot of it's open state park, which is fine, but there's a lot of private enterprise going on in these properties. You know, when you look at the Maid of the Mist, you look at the Cave of the Winds, you look at the Top of the Falls restaurant, you know, they're talking about, there's an RFP out right now for businesses when they remove the north section of the parkway. You know, so these are private enterprises that the city's not getting the benefit of, either property tax. You know, some of those entities, there's been discussion about they should pay something equivalent to a bed tax, like all the hotels do. You know, there should be an attraction fee that goes on, because there's a lot of maintenance and responsibility the city takes on to serve these state, you know, call them state-run private partnership businesses.
If they're operating in the state
Right.
property.
And even when you look at the Bridge Commission, you know, the bridge is, you know, the Rainbow Bridge here, Niagara Street, that cuts the city right in half, is basically a big driveway for the bridge. And it kind of cuts the area in half, pretty much for the sole benefit of that bridge. You know, now there should be a situation where, you know, the city, because we take care of the roads and plow the roads, that they might, you know, they should kick some money back. There should be a fee on top of the fee where it comes back to the city, to the local municipality.
Because that backup is affecting businesses, it affects the traffic, it affects
Without question.
everything. And they're
Without
coming
question.
through our city, here's your toll.
Without
Set up
question.
our own toll. What was that movie? Blazing Saddles, remember? They set up the toll in the desert. No, go on back and get a shitload of dimes.
Yeah. I mean, just when you look at the property, all the property, you know, with the Parkway area, the state parks. I mean, if that was a taxable piece of property for the city, it would be a tremendous amount of money, staggering amount of money.
Well, it's amazing just to see the parking revenue that we've missed all these years talking about putting parking meters up, and now they don't even have to enforce it. They make enough on just the quarters going in there or whatever, their credit cards, and then people are glad to do it. Look at all the money now coming in that has never been realized. So what you guys are talking about is you know, substantial. What efforts, what do you got to do to get the word out and to make something actually happen? Even getting the word out in this town doesn't usually too much.
Right.
You know, I think one of the great things that we've been doing, we announced our group and our movement back in April of 2016, I believe it was. But for about a year and a half before that, we spent working very hard on researching the issues, reading controllers' reports, reading the state law, and having 2-3 meetings a month for a year and a half before we announced our program, because we wanted to have all the information that we possibly could so that we could bring it back to our neighbors and the residents of Niagara Falls. Our main goal is education first, and we want to educate you know, the residents of Niagara Falls, but this is nothing new. I think, you know, these are the things that people have been talking about at barbershops and bars and restaurants and gyms. And these issues have plagued us for generations. And it's our goal to unify our voice and educate the people of Niagara Falls. And one of the things that we are proud of is that we privately raised a lot of money to run commercials. So in the next couple of days, there'll be a commercial on all the local stations for Reclaim Niagara. And we're trying to mobilize the residents to sign our petition, become involved, and maybe donate so that we can continue our marketing efforts and educational efforts. And hopefully one day, you know, the state will approach us in the city and start working on fixing these problems. We're not blaming one specific politician or one group. You know, we're an apolitical organization. It's our goal just to bring them back to the table and say, look, for generations, you've had this process of taking everything good from Niagara Falls and sweeping it to the state. You know, you take the parks and the property, you take the profit from the parks, you take the power generating and the power project, take the casino money, even Love Canal. The state did come in and pay for the cleanup of the Love Canal with the federal government, but the settlement money, the state took it. They never put an amount of money aside to revitalize that neighborhood that was destroyed by the toxic waste. So now the city has to maintain this neighborhood with, you know, a handful of houses, but the state took the money and didn't say, okay, we're going to place this amount of money towards a program to build more houses or do anything different with this property. They just leave it vacant. So we want to reestablish that conversation with the state and the politicians, because we do think that there's things that the state can do to make us true partners that won't cost the state a nickel. I mean, for example, Sean was saying something along the lines of parking and the money generated by the parks. If the state tacked on a couple dollar surcharge per car that parked in the state parks, it doesn't cost the state money, doesn't raise taxes for anybody, but the visitors of Niagara Falls can pay a little bit extra. They're going to pay it no matter what, and that money can come to the city to offset the cost that the city has for public safety and transportation and everything else. But also it makes us true partners with the state, so that there isn't that thought of us versus them. It's a thought of we're generating money from the parks also. And we have lots of ideas on how the state can make this right. We just need them to engage with us.
Well, it's a shame that in the past we haven't just stepped up. For instance, if you had to add more police directing traffic because of the state park's parking ramp being backed up, why didn't we long ago just say, hey, by the way, here's our bill for our extra police? So I didn't have to have these guys. They were going to be with their families this weekend, and they're working directing your traffic that we're not benefiting from. But could that have been done just as a matter of a city directive?
Well, see, some of the issues we have, and I've been surprised that some of our local politicians, they're like, oh, you don't want to ask the state for too much, and they're helping us with this project and that project, and you have to believe that every assemblyman, mayor, council people all over the state spend a lot of time going to the state asking for more money, and a lot of those counties, I'm sure, don't generate the type of revenue that's generated, locally here in Niagara Falls. So there needs to be a concerted effort with all of our local politicians to say, hey, it's time Niagara Falls starts to get more of their fair share of what's generated there. Mm-hmm. And I've been a little surprised at some of the reluctance from some of our local officials. When you look at, just look at the new trolley service that started last year. Now, it's a wonderful thing. It's fantastic. I see a lot of people getting on and getting off. Now, that's something, like you said, we should have had that a long time ago. And look at what it's doing. It's taking people from downtown Niagara Falls near the state park to the state park down in Youngstown, and going and making stops in between. Now, again, the city's had to contribute to that. Niagara University has contributed to that. Well, that's something that the state could have done all of it. These are the type of things that, again, the city's in desperate financial position, and what we're asking, for the amount of money that we would be asking to say to keep here, would not be that much compared to what the state takes, and it's just really a question of fairness.
Mm-hmm. If the state was a true partner with us for the resources in our own backyard, Niagara Falls can be revitalized. So we can be a stronger financial area and region, and it would be a benefit to the state in the long run if they put the resources that we need into the city. Part of it is give us a share of the money that's generated in parking and the different state-run operations in the city. But there's also something that they can do to provide recurring revenue in the city, and that's providing free power for all industry within the city of Niagara Falls. When the power project was established and the power authority was created, part of the statutory obligation of the power authority is to provide economic development, and we don't think that they've done so, especially in Niagara Falls. Now, if they were truly committed to economic development in Niagara Falls, I think providing free power for all industry within Niagara Falls would be a catalyst for economic development, so that we have the opportunity to build the tourism industry, but also have year-round, well-paying jobs with industry. And competitively, I don't think we can do that without free power. And the Power Authority has that ability, and I think we deserve it as a city to have that benefit because the power is generated here. We do have to suffer from, the infrastructure for the Power Authority, the loss of all the waterfront property, and the tax revenue that we've lost out for 70 years, 60 years.
It's funny that there's a reluctance, even though it's for the city, with city government officials, area businesses are all reluctant probably because they think, oh, I don't want to be targeted by the state, and well, what are we getting from the state? What are the businesses and local people? So maybe we've got to look at it and say, hey, we are in for the city, we can do things. Isn't there a water valve we can shut off on Goat Island or anything like that? Can we get some attention that way if they can't flush their toilets?
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting you say that because one of the politicians we spoke to said, sometimes to get the state to do something, you kind of have to humiliate them into it. And if you look at the example like the state park went along for years, and then there was a terrible article, I think it was the New York Times, that just blasted the condition of the park. And immediately, like the next year, they put together a plan, they improved it, spent I think upwards of $25 million, to improve the park because they were kind of embarrassed by that article. And then it's interesting because when they do that, then again, I was talking to some other politicians, they say, well, the state just put $25 million into the state park. And I said, well, it's your park. It's not our park.
Yeah.
You're improving your own property,
Well, I think you guys, we've got to get people off the reluctance part of it. We've got to get people to just say, hey, we could do this, and join in. I mean, you need the help. You need some unified voices here.
Politicians are a little bit more restrained because they're part of the system, and it's not just this issue. They have other issues that they have to work with the state on, but we're not restrained, and we're an apolitical group. We've started this from nothing with just the common idea that we deserve our fair share. We need to be true partners, and if we had more use of the resources in our own backyard, Niagara Falls will succeed. But now we need to convince the rest of the residents to join us and force the state and force the city to have this conversation.
And in the long run, if the plan works like it should and the city does develop, in the long run, the state's going to end up making more money than they're making now.
No, exactly.
That's, invest a little bit now to, for the future.
All right, so what do we got to do? We got to watch the commercials. We got to get people rallied around that. Be ready. Watch your local news and see the.
Yeah, go to the website www.Reclaim Niagara. There's a lot of information on there.
And it's a petition. What does a petition do?
There's a petition both on our website reclaimniagara.com and also our Facebook page where you sign a petition and it's sending a message to Albany that this is something that has to be addressed. It takes 30 seconds.
Yeah, when the politicians see the numbers growing on a petition, then they start to pay attention. When we put together an effort a few years back to get the police station relocated, when we first talked to politicians about it, they're like, oh no, the state's already decided, they're not going to move it. Then we had a petition and a lot of people signed it. All of a sudden, the politicians were like, that's a great idea, we should move it. And they moved it. So it worked. It can work.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, for your efforts. And the city grows, we can get more men's clothing stores in town. Perfect. So, well, let's support these guys. I think they're on a good thing for the city here. We're not taking anything away, as you said, from the state, but we're providing just a little bit different way of looking at things, and we probably should be taking care of ourselves a little bit better here. So.
And we'll get you a copy of the commercial to put on the hub as well.
Oh, cool. All right, good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Didn't see anybody. Thanks, Sean.